Hey everyone, I'm Ermysenigma, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Ingvar's Bodyguard. Since the day the General Ingvar saved his home village, this monster has dedicated his life to protecting his general, whom he follows blindly and worships like a god. If his death led General Ingvar to victory, then he would happily die. That's how loyal he is. Wow. Ingvar's Bodyguard is the first of many bodyguards to come, each for the individual general. And so let's explore how good this monster is, and maybe he'll be an indication of future bodyguards to come. And you should know that as of the time recording this video, there are a total of 24 light legendary monsters, so Ingvar's Bodyguard will be compared to the remaining 23 light legendary monsters. And so we start things off with power. Ingvar's Bodyguard has a power of 3,355, which actually places him in 11th place. His life of 27,445 puts him in 17th place along with Lao Lao. So that means that in the light element, there's only 6 monsters that have a lower life than him. And as for speed, he has a not too impressive speed of 3,399, which puts him in 12th place along with monsters like King Darren and Aron. So I gotta say, just speaking about strictly the stats alone, they're kind of underwhelming. His power and speed are rather average and his life is a little under average, so stats wise he's really nothing too amazing. He does however come with a pretty good trait, immunity to stun. In the light element, light monsters typically tend to blind you, they could also daze you, and some have stunning skills. And then if we branch out to other elements, taking a look at metal monsters, a lot of them tend to stun. Earth monsters especially, a lot of them have stun skills. Fire monsters, their main typical form of denying is also stunning, so having this trait is really useful against other elements. So moving forward, depending what kind of book he'll be in for Team Wars, this could be rather useful. I am however just waiting for the day that we get a monster that's immune to blind and daze, because I think a light monster with immunity to blind and daze could be really beneficial and useful. Anyways, moving on over to the ultimate attack, Heavy Axe Throw. Deals heavy light damage to all enemies, may make all targets bleed. His ultimate attack is a light based AoE that deals 60 damage to all of the enemy monsters, and it's an AoE bleeding. And let me just say that the ultimate itself is a pretty good ultimate, 60 damage AoE that gives an AoE bleeding, so even if the monsters survive, now they're going to have their damage output reduced by 20% and they're going to lose 10% of their life for the next 3 turns. However, this ultimate attack combined with Ingvar's Bodyguard I would say is not so good. Because as I mentioned earlier, Ingvar's Bodyguard doesn't necessarily have the highest power, and when you look at his other skills, it appears he's also not going to be that offensive. You can make him an offensive monster, but he's not really meant to do that. So I guess it is what it is. We're going to skip skills group 1 because there's nothing too interesting there, so moving on to skills group 2 we have Metal Hater. Gives Metal Mirror and damage boost to ally, requires cooldown. So here we have an attack that's designated to a single ally. It only costs 25 stamina, it has a 2 turn cooldown, and it gives that ally Metal Mirror for 3 turns and it gives them a damage boost for 2 turns. A damage boost is equivalent to a 50% boost. And so Metal Mirror is actually something new. It's sort of like Mirror Mirror, except instead of reflecting all attacks, it's only going to reflect metal based attacks, which is why he's Ingvar's Bodyguard. Metal based attacks are highly effective against light based monsters, so having Metal Mirror will reflect all those metal based attacks. And I'm really curious to know if this is any indication of what future bodyguards will do. Will Darwin's Bodyguard have a water mirror? Who knows, we can only speculate for now. But anyways, going back to this skill specifically, for the next 3 turns, one of your allies is going to reflect all metal attacks. Now this won't always work because obviously the enemy metal monster might not only have metal attacks, it could have special based attacks. And not to mention this only applies on a single ally. So if the enemy metal monster does use a metal based attack, but against one of your other teammates, well there's going to be no reflection there. And even though I probably gave more cons than pros, I am going to have to say that you're probably going to want to run this skill. And next up is Weakness Protection. Deals moderate special damage, gives metal protection to all allies, requires cooldown. So here we have a special based attack that targets a single enemy, it deals 45 damage, it costs 28 stamina, it has a 2 turn cooldown, and it gives all of your team metal protection. And so the description of metal protection is that you take half damage from metal based attacks. So for example, if a metal based attack was to take away 2000 damage, it's only going to take away 1000 damage. And so very similar to Metal Mirror, that's pretty cool. However, it won't always work because the enemy metal monster may use a special based AoE on you or a special based single hit on you, in which case you have no protection. If metal protection on the other hand was a skill that protected your team completely from metal attacks, meaning you take no damage from metal attacks, then this would be an extremely powerful skill. I'd even be okay with it if it didn't last 3 turns. If it lasted 1 turn, that would be amazing. But I guess that reducing the damage output from metal based attacks by half is pretty good too. I am very curious to know what's going to happen if your monster is magnetized and then use metal protection. Will metal protection override the magnetized, or are you now magnetized and have metal protection, in which case they kind of cancel out. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen, so I guess we're going to have to wait and see. This skill itself, Weakness Protection, I'm going to say that you probably don't need to run it. There's a better version in skill group 3. Well, somewhat better, they're kind of different. This one deals damage, the other one doesn't. If you're going for an offensive build, you might want to run this skill. I'll talk about that a little later. So for right now, we're just going to move on to the following skill. And the following skill is Sharpened Axes. Deals moderate light damage, may make target bleed, requires cooldown. Here we have a light based attack that targets a single enemy, it deals 40 damage, it costs 28 stamina, and it has a 1-turn cooldown, and it applies bleeding. Bleeding will reduce the damage output by 20%, and the monster will lose 10% of their health for the next 3 turns. And so this skill is pretty straightforward. I don't really know what to say other than it's cool that we have a light monster that can apply bleeding, especially combined with the fact that he can apply metal protection. So specifically against metal monsters, if you give your team metal protection, metal attacks are 50% less effective, and then if you give bleeding to that metal monster's damage output is going to be reduced by 20%, and he's going to be dealing less damage with metal protection. So you can kind of start to see how Ingvar's bodyguard is truly a bodyguard. He lives up to his name. He can protect your team against metal based attacks. However, it's really just that, it's really mostly to go up against metal monsters. As for whether or not you're actually going to want sharpened axes, we'll come back to that a little bit later too. So we're finally at skills group 3, and we start off with Iron Repeller. Gives metal mirror to target, gives metal protection to all allies, requires cooldown. So this skill targets a single ally, it costs 25 stamina, it only has a 1-turn cooldown, and it gives metal mirror to one of your monsters, and it gives metal protection to all of your team. And so we once again have the same problem with this skill as we did with Metal Hater. Metal Mirror can only be applied to one of your allies, meaning if the enemy metal monster doesn't use a metal based attack, well then it's not going to reflect anything. If the enemy monster does use a metal based attack but doesn't attack your monster with Metal Mirror, well then he's not going to be reflecting anything. And so I think what could have made this monster a little better is if Metal Mirror could have been applied to his whole team, but unfortunately that doesn't appear to be the case right now. This skill does however give metal protection to all of your teammates, which is definitely good. It's like the previous skill, except it doesn't deal any damage, and it gives metal mirror to one of your teammates. And obviously a skill like this would be extremely effective to use on yourself, because if you're battling a metal monster, because metal is more effective against light, you want to give yourself metal protection and you want to give metal mirror to yourself. Because most likely, I think the way the AI is programmed, when the AI is going up against a monster that they're extremely effective against, they tend to target that monster. So maybe you can manipulate the AI into attacking your monster. And another cool thing I do want to bring up is what's going to happen when you have a metal monster that has metal protection. An enemy metal monster using a metal based attack on your metal monster already isn't effective. So when you apply metal protection to that, is it going to be even less effective? Is it only going to be like 25% as strong? If so, that's going to be really cool. And I can see this monster being used a lot more, specifically in those situations where it's only metal and light monsters. Because if that is the case, the enemy metal monster is going to have such a tough time getting rid of your metal monster. And anyways, it goes without saying, this is definitely a must-have skill for Ingvar's bodyguard. Next up is Blinding Axes. Deals heavy light damage, main blind target requires cooldown. So this skill is a light based attack that deals 55 damage to an enemy monster. It costs 31 stamina, it has a 1-turn cooldown, and it just gives blind out. And blind, for those of you that don't know, basically reduces the enemy's accuracy by 50%, thus making it less likely to hit you, especially if they were to use an AoE. And it goes without saying that this is definitely a must-have skill, both an offensive skill set and a supportive skill set. Because being able to blind the enemy is one of the most powerful things you can do, especially if you don't have a deny skill yourself. Blinding the enemy is the next best thing to being able to deny them. And last up is Axe Throw. Deals moderate special damage to all enemies, may make all targets bleed, requires cooldown. And here we have a special based AoE that deals 35 damage to all of the enemy monsters, costs 37 stamina, and surprisingly enough it only has a 1-turn cooldown. That's extremely low, and especially when this skill applies bleeding to all of the enemy monsters. A special based AoE with a 1-turn cooldown and it applies bleeding? That is really darn good. And in my opinion, this is another must-have skill. The fact that you can give the whole enemy team bleeding, which reduces damage output, and the fact that you can protect your team with metal protection, that combo is going to work so well, especially against metal monsters. Your team having metal protection and the enemy monster suffering from bleeding, the amount of damage they're going to deal against your monsters is going to be significantly reduced. And so let's talk about skills. You definitely want to run all of skills group 3. Blinding Axes, Axe Throw, Iron Repeller, and Metal Hater. And if you do run the skill set, you want to give this monster 3 team speedruns. He's one of the few legendary monsters I would actually say that for. Typically I'd say 3 speedruns for a deny monster, 2 strength and a speed or a team speed for an attacker, but in this monster's case he really doesn't work that well as an attacker, and he's clearly not a deny monster, so he's a supportive monster, and really his whole purpose is to give your team metal protection, to apply a metal mirror, or to do that AoE bleeding. Other than that, he really can't do much. Oh, of course he can also single blind. And so anyways, the reason you want to give this monster 3 team speedruns is because he should only really be there to help your deny monster and to help your attacker. If you're thinking about giving him a strength rune, he really can't deal much. His power isn't that high and his attacks aren't even that strong either. You could however still definitely run him as an attacker. I'll get into that in a little bit, but for the majority of people that actually get this monster, I highly recommend 3 team speedruns. And of course, for those of you more familiar with other runes, you can give him a team life rune, or you can give him a single speed and 2 team speed. Just mold this monster to best fit in your team. And if you actually want to make this monster a little more offensive and give him a strength rune or 2, in that case I would recommend weakness protection in place of iron repeller. The reason you don't need iron repeller is because metal protection lasts for 3 turns. So when you attack using weakness protection, that already gives metal protection to your whole team. And if you're going to be an attacker, it might be useful to have Metal Hater to give yourself a damage boost. And so yeah, that's gonna be my analysis on Ingvar's Bodyguard. In my opinion, he's a pretty underwhelming monster. Now don't get me wrong, he's not terrible. Like I said, in a Metal Light War, that's where he's really gonna shine. That's where he can really stand out. But in my opinion, it kind of sucks that that's the only place where he really stands out. Because other than that, he doesn't really bring anything new to the table. He doesn't really bring anything powerful. That metal protection, the metal mirror, those skills are gonna be of no use if there's no metal monster to use them against. And in terms of his other skills, the AoE bleeding is definitely really nice, but again, that's really all he has. And his stats aren't too impressive, so yeah, in my opinion, overall he's an underwhelming monster. I really hope this is an indication of future bodyguards. I hope future bodyguards are way more powerful, way more deadly, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And so now I want to hear from all of you guys. What do you guys think about Ingvar's Bodyguard? Do you think I didn't give him enough credit? Do you think he can be used in more situations? Please let me know in the comments below. I really look forward to reading all of your guys' comments, so whatever you have to say, please put it down in the comments. And with that being said, I'm Ermysenigma. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like always, remember to dream big and pursue your passions.